Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle. If you're just tuning in, at the table with me are Royce the 5'9" and Kevin Fisher. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Kevin, I feel like you've been here so many times that, you're like my co-host now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Royce, everybody knows you as this, they know your creative genius, your rap abilities, your music writing abilities, but people may be surprised to find that you are genuinely interested in mental health.
Yes.
And so I think to kind of, get rid of some of this shock value is to just release and let people know, hey, what got you here, and your personal stories.
I had a personal experience with therapy first. That's what happened. I had an experience with therapy. I'm 8 years sober, alcoholic. So I decided 8 years ago that I wanted to stop. And just the conversation that I had with my therapist, who's still my therapist today, he's keeping me super grounded to say the least. But there was something about the conversations that we were having where I started to learn how to place perspective on things, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Like I just started to really be able to put things into perspective, see things a different way. And then I started just kind of comparing that to just people in my life that I see who I feel like never got even the opportunity to be able to sort of think that way. And it was actually a conversation I had with you as well, Queen. We did the ceasefire initiative. I don't know if you remember. We did it maybe a few years ago. And I was talking to you about the way that I handled myself in school. I didn't go every day to mess up. I didn't want to mess up all the time. Not all the time.
Sometimes.
Some of the times I actually wanted to do well because I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be eligible to play basketball. I was an amazing basketball player. Just kidding. But I wanted to be eligible for basketball. I wanted to be eligible for basketball. And what I would find was I had seizures when I was young, petit mal seizures when I was young. And for whatever reason, I used to just daydream a lot in class. So, the class would start and I tell myself, okay, I'm going to focus today. I'm focusing. No doodling, no drawing pictures of faces. I'm just going to focus. And then, boom, the bell rings. Whole day gone, you know what I mean? So, I couldn't stop myself from focusing. So you told me, a lot of artists and producers, what happens is we tend to daydream, we tend to doodle, we tend to do things that you can draw correlation to other creatives. So you told me somebody was supposed to recognize that and put me in maybe like a performing arts class or some sort of situation where maybe I'm in smaller classes so I can get the attention that I needed, the individual attention that I needed. So that was helpful to me. And you said something that resonated with me. You said it's not necessarily that you failed the institution, but maybe the institution failed you. And that stuck with me since then. And it made its way with me through fatherhood, going to parent-teacher conferences and not necessarily just going along with everything that the teacher has to say, but, asking the questions that would push them as well. And not just kind of, because my dad is a disciplinarian, so it's kind of like if the teacher says that I didn't apply myself, then that's what it was. You didn't apply yourself. Okay, you didn't apply yourself, so maybe you should do better next time. There never was any sort of like blame or anything with the teacher where the teacher was being asked any sort of question. Everything was on me, so I put it in my mind. I processed it as, okay, well, maybe I just need to apply myself.
Yeah, it was always just your fault.
Yeah, always just my fault. Always just my fault. So like everybody needs therapy. Every human being needs therapy, but especially Black people.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to hear you say that because it's the awareness of it. It's the awareness of, I need help or I'm having a problem, no matter how big, how small. And it's okay to ask for help. It's not a matter of, well, I can just fix this myself, or it's just a little problem. I don't need help, because that little problem, if you don't learn how to deal with it, can grow into a huge problem. If it's enough to affect you and make you think about it, then you probably need to talk to somebody. Even if it's not, formally engaging in therapy, you still need to talk to somebody about it. So I'm glad to know that that helped you, because I never know when people are listening to me and taking it in or not. And then it lets me know, even from that perspective, when I'm looking at, my nephew and saying, maybe it's not all him. Not everybody's an auditory learner, which is what traditional education relies on, being able to listen and consume information versus. So
I'm definitely not an auditory learner.
you're a hands-on,
I'm still
kinesthetic learner.
I'm still in that phrase. I'm using it.
Yes, yes,
I'm
you're
using
not. We're going to take a quick break. In the meantime, head over to @Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle. Share your thoughts. Welcome back to Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle. So, Kevin, I saw you over there. I know you had some thoughts running through your head as we were having this conversation about, what Royce's experiences were. And with you being the executive director of NAMI, you're an expert. You always say you're not, you can't diagnose and you're not a mental health professional or you're not, a therapist. But you know what? We're going to give you an honorary degree.
All right,
okay?
all right, be careful.
So go for it.
Well, one of the things that I enjoy so much about welcoming Royce into this space as a mental health advocate really is illustrated by the story he just told. Because we as parents tend to accept, as Royce said, what the teacher said. Well, the teacher said that Kevin's disruptive in class. Well, what does that mean? What behaviors am I exhibiting that's disruptive in the class? Because Kevin may not be a bad child. Kevin may not be a good auditory learner, or Kevin may be this creative personality that needs to be nurtured. And so parents need to learn to question, what's that behavior that's disruptive? How do we help get the best out of Kevin? And I like what Royce said when he had the conversation with you. It's not necessarily that Royce is failing the school. Maybe the school's failing the Royces of the world. And we know, again, in the African American community, many times our kids are very easily labeled bad kids. And they're expelled, they're suspended, they're put into special ed, and those kids are stunted. Their growth emotionally and physically is stunted. And we talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, a lot. That can have a ripple effect on the rest of their life. So we need as parents to question and do what's best for our kids.
And you know what? That takes us right into this other topic, stigma. So let's say, okay, so you get placed in special education, get picked on. And so you start to automatically, you're conditioned to think that if I'm asking for help or if I need extra help, that means something's wrong with me, everybody's going to laugh at me. So you start out as that child who doesn't want to ask for help, and you grow into that adult who's not asking for help. And so now Royce, you said you got into therapy. What helped you get beyond that stigma? Like, I'm Royce to 5'9", I don't need that kind of help. Like, what helped you say, yeah, I'm going to talk to somebody?
It was the very first time that we spoke. I went in there with that mind frame. I went in there in that mind frame, and I went in there specifically to speak about alcoholism. Nothing else. I wasn't trying to tell this white man my business, so I'm going in there and we're talking, and he's a former addict, and we connected like you wouldn't believe, and we just started seeing eye to eye. He started asking me questions. I started talking to him about my childhood. I started talking to him about my relationship with my dad, and I started to quickly notice that I was suppressing a lot of feelings throughout my whole childhood, because a lot of these things started to, as I started to unpack, I just started to get emotional. And I know we've been knowing each other for a minute, but I'm not, well, I am an emotional guy because I'm a Cancer, but I'm not a cry person. I don't cry. Never cry, right, Moosh? Never. I never cry. So I'm talking to this man, and we're talking, and the next thing you know, I'm in tears. And it was like a weight was lifting off my shoulders, though. It wasn't like I was hurting or, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like pain. It felt
Attention.
it felt like it was
The demons.
releasing. Yes. So that let me know that a lot of the things that I had been suppressing, a lot of the traumatic experience that I've witnessed, I processed them as traumatic experiences. I just didn't realize it because I got so used to suppressing things. So what I would do is, if something bothers me, let's say if I see something that my dad and my mom is going through at 11 at night, you know, the next morning we're eating cereal like nothing happened. So basically I just took it and I just set it somewhere so I don't have to see it. I don't have to think about it, you know, and I developed into the kind of person that deals with every single emotion that exact way. And, you know, and then when I grew up and I started to drink, which I took my first drink at 21. I took my first drink at 21 with Dr. Dre. So Dr. Dre asked me if I wanted to drink, and the only reason why I said yes is because I did not want to say no. Because it was Dr. Dre. You know, and that drink turned into more drinks. Years passed, it formed into a habit, and now I'm drinking it's a coping mechanism, but I'm not knowing it at that time. So it wasn't until we started to talk in therapy that I was able to draw a correlation to all of these things, and even identifying with having anxiety. Like, I didn't know that I had anxiety. I had anxiety when I was in high school. Playing basketball. I thought I was just nervous for the game. I'm like, why is he not nervous and I'm nervous before the game? You know, and it takes me a while to kind of like shake the jitters off. You know, even performing, you know, I take a few shots to take the edge off. Now I don't have to do that, but, you know, it took a long time for me to, you know, to shake that, you know. So going to therapy and being able to talk to somebody and being able to identify with all of these things that I just said, it just helped me as a human being. You know, it helps me to get better, because how do you get better, right? You can identify with the things that are fixable, and you can begin to fix those things. But if you can't identify with those things, how can you fix them? If you don't know exactly what's wrong, you know. And what happens is you start to normalize everything. You just say, I'm different, you know, like I did in school. I guess I'm not academic. I guess I'm not as smart as this person. I guess I don't have good study habits. I guess college is just not for me. You know, I told myself all of those things.
Yeah, I actually wrote that word down. I wrote the word normalize down when you were talking about not dealing with things, and you had ACEs but didn't realize. Because if we normalize traumatic experiences, then suddenly they're not traumatic experiences, but our brain still processes them as traumatic experiences. So normalizing doesn't mean that it's not traumatizing. You know what, we gotta take another break. We're gonna take a quick break, stay tuned. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back to Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle. If you're just joining us, at the table with me are Kevin Fisher, NAMI Executive Director, and Royce the 5'9". You know who he is, rapper, songwriter, and producer. So, Kevin, as a NAMI Executive Director, what do you think are some of the solutions to eliminating stigma and helping to normalize treatment, or just talking about your diagnosis?
You know, for me, it's simply, we need to talk about it. We need to talk more about it. Mental health needs to be a breakfast table conversation in every home. You know, I listened to Royce's story and I listened to his process, and we talk about things like stigma. Going to therapy has made him stronger. It allowed him to identify events that happen in his life and to be able to deal with them in its simplest form. Instead of self-medicating with alcohol, he learned to deal with the root cause of the problem. This is the trauma that I experienced as a young person that I suppressed. Now I'm dealing with that root cause, and I can move on with my life and be productive and happy. And guess what? I don't need the alcohol anymore. And we have to, as a nation, and again, specifically in the African American community, we have to get past those stigmas. It's not weak to cry. It's not weak to go to therapy. When he cried, what did he say? The weight of the world came off my shoulders.
Crying is cathartic. I always say it. You know, you get you a good cry, and it's like the problem's all gone.
Yeah.
You know, and even if they're still there, it's like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought, or I can deal with it now.
I wish I could turn it on and off like that.
Well, you know, for me, you know, again, having lost my son, that was one of the vehicles for me. And even the process before he passed, knowing that he was sick and I didn't feel like I could help him, I cried a lot. I'd never prayed and cried so much in my life, but that crying, as you mentioned, was cathartic. It was cleansing for me. It gave me room to breathe and think and get the energy to re-engage with the issue. So.
And Kevin, if you can share quickly, how did you lose your son? I know not a lot of people know, but not everyone knows.
Sure. I lost Dominique in 2010 to suicide after a 3-year battle with very serious mental health diagnosis. It was very apparent to me that I knew nothing about the mental health system. I knew nothing about treatment. Didn't understand his diagnosis. And so I came to this work as an advocate, really looking very similar to Royce. I was looking to help myself find understanding, and it pushed me down this path to help others. And so that's how I got here.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Royce, did you ever get to a point in your life where you felt really down, where you even considered taking your own life or any type of self-harm or anything like that?
No, I didn't get to that place, but I can understand how somebody, especially a recording artist, would get to that place. It's something about being a rapper, a MC. A MC is what we call it. It comes along with the bravado that you can build up in your mind, and you can kind of hide behind that. You can kind of hide behind that, and I think that some of the false bravado that I had when I was really young, maybe 20, 21 years old, when I first got into the music business, some of that I think is what kind of kept me around. I got through a lot of situations because I've had people tell me, I don't know how you made it through that situation. I don't know how you bounced back from that. I don't know how I bounced back from it either. I didn't have a plan, you know what I mean? I just I just didn't accept anything else as an option, you know? And that was one good thing that I could say pre-therapy about being a recording artist and about being somebody with a really, really vivid imagination who can just kind of write things down and just kind of stick to them.
So you already had in your mind, you know, I'm above a lot of these things. I'm
Yeah, you know what was
strong.
happening? Yeah, I was going through things in the street. What I did was I made the costly mistake of calling myself the king of Detroit when I signed my record deal, when I signed my first record deal, and I signed a $1 million record deal, and the average person doesn't know how these deals break down. So, you know, to the average Detroit person, when they hear I have a record deal and they see me, I might as well have the entire $1 million on me. Yeah. So, you know, and I, you know, I felt like that was something to play on. So I was like, yo, I got a $1 million deal and I'm the king of Detroit. And what I did was I created a lot of enemies for myself. I think that aggressive, lyrical MC behavior and not accepting anything other than I'm going to make it through this and being used to suppressing feelings.
Yeah.
And normalizing everything, and you know, attempts on my life. It's just normal to me. It wasn't anything for me to get inside of my own head about because I was already accustomed to dealing with these things in a very toxic manner.
Yeah.
You know?
And I guess the industry, that's it seems like that's almost synonymous with the industry. It's like you need a little bit of that, you know, narcissism, inflated ego type, like I'm the greatest and in order to thrive.
Sometimes.
But it can be damaging at the same time.
Very, very. You got to know how to differentiate the two. You know, I always like to say that I'm a product of my words, some people say things and then they try to live up to the words. You know, my words are just a product of who I am. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like live up to my words. There was a point in time where I would just say things and then try to be that. Mm-hmm. And it's in art, you have to realize that intent is everything. Yeah. As soon as the intent is that, God gets up and walks out the room. That's a Quincy Jones quote.
Oh. I love that. A great note to go to break on. Intent is everything. We're going to take a quick break. In the meantime, head over to @MyMatters with Dr. Michelle and share your thoughts. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. Also, a special thank you to our sponsor, the Ryan Montgomery Foundation. Mental well-being starts with self-care. Even the smallest gesture or change in mindset can improve your outlook. Today, I challenge you to think about your thinking. Is it positive or negative? Head over to @MyMatters with Dr. Michelle. Share your thoughts about today's episode and more. Improve your mental health, improve your life. See you next week.